Welcome to another episode of the Hoopsfix podcast with me, your host, Sam Nita, full-time British basketball advocate. And we're back again. And on this week's show, we've got none other than Bobby Kinzer, a legend of the game from Basketball England's National League days in the 80s, signed with Ovaltine Hemel Hempstead in 1979-80, and is a well-known face from back in those days. And it was good to get him on to learn more. That was sort of a bit before my time, and people speak about it very fondly about the level of Americans that we had playing here, and to hear him talk about it, to hear him talk about the potential that people spoke of then, and some of the issues that still persist today. It was super interesting conversation. So I hope you will enjoy the conversation as much as I did. As always, before we get into the show, please take 2 seconds to check out our Patreon account. If you enjoy what we're doing with Hoopsfix, if you want us to carry on doing what we're doing with Hoopsfix, please consider giving us a monthly or annual donation. If you go to patreon.com/Hoopsfix, that's patreon.com/HOOPSFIX, there you can sign up to give us a monthly or annual contribution to help us continue doing the work that we're doing. So please consider it and go and check it out. As always, I'd love to hear what you think. If you're watching on YouTube, leave a comment below. If you're listening and you want to leave a comment, go to social media. I am available on every single platform at Hoopsfix. Or if you prefer some private one-on-one interaction, you can drop me an email on sam@hoopsfix.com. I respond to every single one. Anyway, that is enough from me. Here is this week's show with Bobby Kinzer. Bobby, welcome to the show.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Like I said, like we were saying sort of before we started recording, this era that you were involved with was a little bit before my time, but I hear so much about it, and I'm really excited to kind of pick your brain a little bit and hear about basketball in the 80s. And I think the obvious place to start is just talk a little bit about your background, sort of how you first got into basketball, and then I guess your path that led you ending up playing in England.
Okay. Well, by the way, the 80s and 90s was really the golden ages of British basketball. I mean, I think that was the highlight of the game, was some serious basketball. And I grew up in Washington, D.C. I played in high school. I went to college at Penn State University. That's where I met my good friend Kevin Cato. We were roommates and we played for Penn State, and we stayed roommate friends until he got hired in Scotland. And from there, I played 2 years and I transferred to the University of Texas A&I, which is down on the Gulf of Mexico. Played 2 years there, fractured my foot my senior year, missed the draft, but there was a free agent camp in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and that's where the NCAA championship coach, Nolan Richardson, he had a friend that was doing a European camp, about 70 guys from all over the country, and it was crazy because this was like every man for himself type thing. And the agent picked me up because I recuperated from a fractured foot, had a stellar camp. He sent me to South America in the summer because that was the thing back in the day. In spring and summer was South America because that's their winter. And then from August to May, guys will then play in Europe. So I went to Venezuela first, which was crazy, man. I mean, they were throwing hot pennies on you. You're playing in a gym that had a fence around the court indoors. And then I went to Hemel Hempstead, England, played for Ovaltine in 1979 and stayed there 2 years. 1 year, had a stellar season. Me and Larry Dassey, the great Larry Dassey, I hope we get to talk about him, one of the greatest players ever played and one of the most amazing characters that you would ever meet. And that's the thing. Back in the day, there were a lot of characters, great players and characters, man, that made things interesting. But I'm sounding like an old guy. Yeah, see, they don't know when I used to walk in the store with no shoes. I ain't going to that. But that's basically my back. And then I came over. They released me, believe it or not. My first year, we went to Wembley in the playoffs. And we only had 2 Americans, me and Larry Dash. All other teams had, 2, 3 Americans because they had, 2 foreign players and dual nationals. And some guys would surrender their American passport and be fully British, like Crystal Palace that had 5 Americans. And they had the greatest player to play, not just in England and Britain, in Europe, Alton Bird. one of the best players, man. And oh God, we always met up. He was considered like the straight guy, the businessman, and I was considered the flamboyant prince, clown prince. And we clashed and always ended up in the championships. But that's a little history of me.
So you're obviously even today, right? The perception of basketball in England when you speak to people overseas and you say, "Oh, I'm interested in basketball and I'm from England," they're always like, "England, like basketball. There's basketball in
Right.
England." Like, back then, what was the perception when your agent or when the sort of the conversations first came up about we've got an opportunity for you in England? Like, what was your thought process? Like, what did you know of basketball in England?
Well, back then in like I say 79, 80, the 70s, a lot of guys was still trying to make the NBA. That was the thing from America. But then you were hearing about some guys going to play in Europe. But the teams that were popular in Europe back then, it was Italy first, Spain, Holland, and believe it or not, Maccabi Tel Aviv and Israel. They were in the European League, and those were the top places to play. So I did hear of people going there, but most guys wasn't trying to go and play in Europe because of the language barrier. But I was scheduled to go to Sweden first. And my agent called me like a week later. He said, "Have you received your airplane ticket?" I said, "No." He said, "Well, I got a deal in England. It's $100 more and they speak in English." So at that time, I didn't know anybody that was playing in England and Britain. Didn't even know about the EBBA, which they called it back then, the English Basketball Association. But they had some real good players.
And when the contract offer, like, what sort of money could you earn playing in the EBL back then?
Back then, it's like so it was $2.30 per pound, right?
Right. Yeah.
So I was paid over like 10,000 pounds. So it was about anywhere between $20,000 and $25,000. But that's for like September to May, basically like about 8 months.
Yeah.
So that was a good salary back then. Plus they gave you, I mean, they didn't give you a car. You had use of a car, and you had a house. You usually had a house, and you take all that, and they were paying for your gas. So that was almost equivalent to making about maybe 50 or 75,000 in a regular good job back then.
Yeah. It's amazing. Um, so when you came over here, like, what was your, I guess, first impression of the league here? Like, were you surprised by the level, or did you think the level was lower than you expected it to be? Kind of like, yeah, what was the sort of the lay of the land when you first got
Good
here?
question, but can I go back for a minute
Yeah, go
about
on.
the salary?
Yeah,
Everybody didn't make that, Sam. I mean, there were some guys making like, $500 a week. Let me clarify that, by the way. Some guys wasn't even getting paid. So let me get this straight. But because I played and was at a real good team, it was run good administration. And every team didn't have good administration. So let me get that straight. Everybody didn't make that. I came out started making. I think I made about 16 or 15. Then it went up to 25. So let me
yeah,
clarify that.
yeah,
Now, when I came here, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what to expect. And when we played, like we had a TV game against Sunderland. Back then, Sunderland was one of the top organizations in the English Basketball League, and they would run very well. And they had good money, so they had good players. So the competition was really, really good. And normally the foreign players, which usually American players, were matched up against each other, and the country's players were matched up. And there were some really good players. I mean, Birmingham, Fiat had some stellar players, man. This guy named Greg White, left-handed, 246'8", a beast. Could do it all, rebound, dribble, shoot. Strong as I don't know what. Doncaster, another well-organized organization ran by the great, what was his name? Oh God, Morris Wandsworth and Fiat Birmingham, this guy named Bob Hope. He was getting all the top players, man. And then Crystal Palace, always they had about 5 Americans. So the competition was thick. And then Solid came in. I think the guy's name that owned Solid was Harry Keats. He was a interesting owner, kind of flamboyant, but he had several because they had money. Who had money? And that's the thing, Sam. This game is all about the money. And we'll get into that, I'm sure. Why this league, they don't want to put the money in it because at the end of the day, it's about the money. And if you got the money, you get quality players. And that was the thing. The competition might have been about 10 teams, 10 to 12 teams at the most in the league, but they were great, good teams. Bracknell always had good management, great teams. Brighton, Manchester, they had the great jump shooter, Bob Martin, man. These guys were phenomenal players, and the competition was really, really good.
Was it just an English National League? There wasn't like Scottish teams or Welsh teams involved in it. Was it just English at that point?
It was just the English at that point, although they had the Scottish League and the Welsh League, but they really wasn't putting the money in it once again. So and this is the thing, Sam. Most of these teams were run by local little towns. Well, but when you get into Birmingham, a little bit bigger, Manchester, bigger cities. But then you got Bracknell and Brighton and places like that, and they're not big places. Leicester, which is in at Leicester, so they weren't big markets. So they didn't have. They were started by club people, like local clubs, and then they moved up to the professional rank. And when you moved into the professional rank, then that's when the money started coming in. But that was big time, like corporations, and the corporations wanted to come in and take over the teams. But the people who raised it from club ball, the local organizational teams that had the under 13s and the under 16s, they want the big money wanted to push them out because, to be honest, they had small minds. Some of them, they came from, like I said, club ball. And the big money business people, they just wanted to move them out the way because sometimes it's just, and I just put it was small thinking. But they didn't want to let go. And it's the same thing to this day, Sam. It's the same thing to today. They don't want to let it go. The big people want to put the money in, but they want control. And the people who took it from the grassroots to where it is, they want to, take care, hold on to their baby. But so it's this, and the money never comes in.
When you speak about money, like were the clubs actually making money? Like, were they profitable, or was it just a wealthy owner that was willing to just lose money?
I think no, it's no question it was a wealthy owner willing to lose money. But but let me give you because it varied. Let me give you Ovaltine's, Hemel Hempstead's organization. They created a lottery, one of the first lotteries in Hemel Hempstead. So they were running their own lottery. And then once I saw how they ran a lottery, like you only have this amount of money and all these tickets you sell, I'm like, what a farce. But anyway.
But it was nothing to do with basketball. People just bought a lottery ticket and had a chance of winning the pot.
Yes. Nothing to do about basketball. And that's how they funded Hemel Hempstead. So,
Really?
that was creating revenue.
Yeah.
Believe it or not. And the other, and like I said, some of these smaller markets, I mean, you're selling a ticket for 75p, £2, you're not making no money. But it was about sponsorship, Sam. You ran the name on the jersey, and that's where, because it was getting to the point where it was starting to get on TV. Because when I transitioned to Scotland, and same as Altenburg, that's when ITV4 came in and started the first TV contract. But they had, to be honest, and it sounds like I'm bragging, but when me and Alton went to Scotland, the personalities, because Alton was a personality in his own right, and I definitely was. They didn't really have no personalities, and England and Britain, they wasn't ready for basketball. They were almost just learning. When I came over, with their knowledge of basketball was the Harlem Globetrotters, and I had to get past that. But once I saw what was going on, I'm like, oh, it's about entertainment. And so sometimes that's why I would do stuff, spin the ball, go up in the stands and warm up, come out the stands and dunk the ball. And they called me flamboyant. They thought I was being boastful, but I saw what the deal was. It's about marketing the sport. And that's what happened. The TV came in at the time, and then it just, they didn't have any really good personality. They had some good teams, but they were still learning the game, to me.
Yeah. What were the attendances like across the league in those days?
Okay, so once again, let me use Team So Ripe in Scotland. They had a purposely built, no, excuse me, it wasn't purposely built. It was a roller skating rink, and the owner put the basketball court in the middle of the rink, 50,000 square feet, and that held it was about 35, no, I'm sorry, that held 5,000 people. And we used to pack that. But most of the audiences were, remember, at the multi-purpose sports centers. That's where the basketball courts were. So they might have stands of maybe 150, 200, 300 probably at the most, because they were the multi-purpose sports facilities, and that was crazy. My first time, I didn't know about international basketball rules. I didn't know they were different than regular basketball, where they had the trapezoid for for the 3-second lane. You didn't have to give the ball to a ref on a non-violation like traveling. They would grab it and run. And then we play in these multi-purpose gyms, Sam. They got 5 lines on the floor. Red, blue, green, white. And I'm like, oh God, on the sideline where you turn and get into a triple threat, and then you take that back foot to get ready to go, step on the line all the time. And then they grab the ball and run. I'm like, oh, what the hell? What, am I out of bounds? And that was crazy, because remember they had the soccer line, the badminton line.
The volleyball, everything. Yeah, I mean that's still a problem to the day. I mean, funnily enough, the professional league now, like, they have clean courts. It's one of the sort of the requirements that they play on basketball lines only. But at lower levels, especially National League Division 1, and just anyone that wants to play on an indoor space in the UK, like, generally you are battling with thousands of lines, and it is just makes it very difficult, doesn't it?
Yes.
Not a good experience for basketball players.
Yeah.
One of the things I still to this day don't fully understand is that why back then there was so much corporate interest and there was so much sponsorship. You speak about Hemel Hempstead, you've got Ovaltine as their sort of title sponsor. Like, repeatedly in the last, I've been doing this now 15 years. One of the huge problems that the sport has been bringing in commercial income. It's trying to get, whether it's a title sponsor for the league or whether it's a jersey sponsor for the Great Britain national teams, like, getting the actual commercial interest is a real problem. And I've always put it down to a sort of cultural disconnect where, the people that are responsible for marketing budgets in these companies, they don't have any sort of connection or affiliation to basketball, haven't experienced basketball, and so they don't look at basketball as a potential option. But when I look back to, these times, well, that cultural issue would have still existed. Like, basketball would have still been seen as an American sport, but there were still companies that were willing to put in money. So what do you think it was that allowed these corporate sponsors to get involved with the game? Why do you think there was that interest that no longer exists?
Once again, and it's only my opinion, but I think it's pretty much on. But there were several things, by the way, Sam. That's the problem. It was not one thing, first of all.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the first things, as I tried to express first, there were small minds from the lower clubs trying to move and deal with big movers and shakers. Small minds wasn't ready to give it up and to move to that status. And then there were some incompetent people, Sam. Just, first of all, just incompetent, didn't know how to manage money, and like, for instance, let me tell you one of the things that killed English basketball in probably the late 90s, I think it was, when they went to having 5 Americans. Remember, from 2 foreign players, 5 Americans to try to compete with the other European countries. What happened was, but they capped the salary buckets at like 150,000 pounds. Now, how are you going to get 5 players for 150,000 pounds? So what happened, they started getting mediocre players, right? They just tried to get 5 players, but the players were mediocre, so the game went down. The product, that was the other thing, the product wasn't a good quality product. And that's one of the things that killed it in the late 90s going into 2000. But it was so many incompetent people, small-minded people. The big boys wanting to come in and crush the little local clubs and just take over and do their thing, like I said, it was several variables, Sam, but those were the main ones, because I came in 2017, the Euro League, right? That's the league to be in now, right? And this tells you how serious the EuroLeague is. They pay each team, well, it might have went up from there, but they pay each team anywhere between $30 and $40 million to be in the EuroLeague. This is how serious the EuroLeague is. To
Who
get
does?
out, say it again.
Who pays each team in the EuroLeague?
The EuroLeague.
The league does.
The compilation of all the sponsors and owners of those teams.
Mm-hmm.
They put in the money, and the EuroLeague, they pay teams 30 and 40, to go to the championship, to play in it as you go further, right? To get in the league, right? This is how serious it is. To get out of the EuroLeague, Sam, you have to pay approximately $10 million because they're giving you 30, 40 million to run this team. And then it goes up from there if you win.
Yeah.
That's how the Euro. So isn't this crazy? Now, in Europe, London and Paris don't have a team in the EuroLeague.
Paris do now. This season, they've got a team.
There you go. So I came in 2017, and my background now is finance. I came out and became a stockbroker and a financial advisor. Then I was a liquidator of national banks. So I came in with Kevin Cato. I put together a proposal with Vince McCauley. I'm sure you know that name.
Yeah.
They had a team. I was trying to get Vince and them into the EuroLeague. I'm not going to go any further, but once again, it was a disconnect, Sam. And it's crazy. We had this, but because of a disconnect and people not being above board, it got the sponsors that I had, the one to come in, they like, we don't want nothing to do with it. And it's the same old thing again that I was talking from the 80s to the 90s. I couldn't believe it. I had the whole plan for, the budget, how we're going to do it. Kevin was going to be the managing agent and managing director, and Vince was going to be the owner. But things fell apart just because of bad communications. But so it's like, how can that be? Why is not? So you're saying the team is now from London and Paris are in, and it's amazing.
So Paris are now in the EuroLeague. They won the Euro Cup last season, then got promoted, so they're in the EuroLeague. And then
Paris won. Oh, go man! I got so disenchanted. I kind of backed off of it.
Yeah, and then London Lions were actually in the Euro Cup semi-finals last year. And then there's been a whole thing where they essentially went bankrupt, and now they're back in just the domestic league here. But it seems, by every indication, they're going to be back in European competition next season. But yeah, obviously,
it's the same thing, man. I don't understand it. So Sam, when I first came over, right, you just couldn't come in England and play basketball and consider that a job and get a work visa. Okay, you had to become a basketball development officer. You had to work. You had to go into the schools,
really?
To actually get the visa to come in, right?
Okay.
So that made sense, but
so was every player back then was also doing coaching essentially.
Yeah, right, because you had to be a development basketball officer to get into the country and stay longer than 3 weeks. That's how it was.
Wow.
But I'm saying that to say, when I first came in, we were going into schools, but the headmasters wasn't for most of them, not all of them, for American sport coming against traditional sports. I had kids come and do my practices with soccer cleats on because, they didn't know nothing about, and I had to send them home and they were crushed. I mean, no, you can't play. But that was the mentality there. And the headmasters, even though it wasn't the headmasters that invited in sometimes. It really was the teachers that got it in. But the headmasters, a lot of times, wasn't for it. So I don't know if that's another thing, Sam, that they're going against. Is it still soccer? Football is the king. Rugby is still club ball. Cricket is still on the skirts, I don't know, but that is the other factor that I think caused it not to grow from the grassroots. And that's the other thing, if I could just say. no one really came with a good grassroots program, because that's how you build it. It's not just money, because a lot of people say, "Oh, Bob, stop it! It ain't about the players." It is about it, because the product is important. That you got a good product, players playing, but you also got to have a good base. And that, because remember, Crystal Palace had their youth team, and you interviewed the great Joel Moore. I remember when Joel was just a young guy playing, on the teenage teams. Everybody had grassroots back then, and they were building and filtering into the professional leagues. But it doesn't seem that they have that structure anymore.
Yeah, no, I think that's it actually, funny enough. Well, I agree with you on that. I think the professional league particularly has in general, not every team, but in general, hasn't shown a great interest in developing sort of young British talent. But I think it seems like now, since everything that's happened with the league, there seems to be a renewed focus and an understanding that, for the league to be what everyone wants it to be, and for it to reach the level that everyone thinks it can reach, there needs to be a serious focus on investing in British talent and putting together junior programs and, providing a pathway for these kids so they don't feel like, they have to go to the US and that's where you've got to be if you want a, basketball career.
Right. And I'm pulling for them. I'm telling you, every year I get discouraged, but then I haven't lost hope, because I just felt, and that's what I learned, Sam. Being a pioneer, there is no rewards. They forget about your butt, and we blaze the trail, and they're like, who? Bobby, who? That old bastard. And we were there, but and that's why I still have such a strong interest, because I know what it could be. Because I'm telling you, in those 80s and 90s, we had some serious games, man. They were exciting, even though it might have been just 300 people and 500 people, but it was packed to the
Yeah.
rafters. And if it was bigger place, it would have been more people.
Yeah. It's when I'm doing digs into the history, I remember, I think it was last year, I found a news report. I think it's from the BBC, but it was from the 80s, and it was exactly the same thing you would hear on TV today, where it's saying basketball is going to be the next big thing in England. Look at all the players that are playing at a grassroots level. Look at the interest in the top league. Wow. And I've and repeatedly, every decade you can find something in, whether it's a newspaper report, whether it's a TV report, something saying basketball is the next big thing.
This is it. This is the time. And I've heard it. You know how many times I heard that? That's why I was staying in touch with the EuroLeague, because we were getting ready. I had some investment bankers. I had a private person, a professional basketball player that wanted to invest in it. And it would have only cost for 3 years, back in 2017, $9 million to run from top to bottom. Just $9 million.
Yeah, $9 million over 3 years, so $3 million a year.
Over three, and I'm talking about dollars. $3 million a year would have set up and would have been in the EuroLeague, and then they would have been able to receive 30 or 40 million.
Really? I didn't know the EuroLeague did distributions like that. I'm not.
Yeah, but that's how they started off. They started off with distributions of 30, 40, and like I said, in order to get out the league, you had to pay $10 million, because if you got 30 or 40, you just can't just take it and run, because they were trying to develop the league. Now that's how it started off, and in 2017 it was like that. Now it may have changed, but no, that's it, and that's why. And I'm telling you, Sam, that's why the EuroLeague is so good, because the money they put the money in that.
I still think the vast majority of the teams are losing money though.
Yeah, that's why they put money in to support the team, so the bottom won't fall out.
Yeah. But do you think that's a good thing? Do you think it's good to run a sports league or a sports club at a loss? Like it's just a thing that a plaything that you just keep investing money in year out. Like surely it needs to be sustainable.
Only until the 80s and 90s, the 80s with Magic Johnson and Larry Bird, most teams in the NBA were running in the red. And what it was a tax shelter for big, rich people, just like what I'm talking about, how the league started in England, for them to write off their losses against their other profitable corporations. That's how it was for years until the 80s. But then, once again, and this is the other key, and remember I told you several things, this is the other key I left out. TV is important.
Yeah.
You got to have a TV deal to get it to the people so the sponsors will come in. And they never had really gotten a good TV. Because remember, the NBA was, what do they call it, delayed. They weren't live broadcast. They weren't making no money in the early 80s, 70s. It was delayed broadcasting. But then Magic, people forget. They keep talking about Magic and Larry Bird saved the league. But this is who saved the league. Dr. J saved the league until they came, man. They don't give Doc. They always talk about the GOAT and they leave the doctor out. But anyway, that was TV, man. And when TV, and look, what they got $6 billion contracts now, and that's the other component, Sam, that the English league is missing. But remember, if you get TV with basketball, you're now competing with football.
Yeah.
You're competing with darts 180.
Yeah, the TV piece I've always said is so important, but also it is the type of TV. Like I've always felt like, there have been TV deals over the years, but they're not. It's not free to air, and I think like getting that free to air slot that everyone can see it is that's what's key. Rather than Sky Sports, people pay X amount, they've got so many channels that they've got to seek it out. It's got to be in front of them, front and center. You've got to be able to come across it without having to look for it. And I think at the moment, especially, this year they've signed a deal with DAZN, and to me it feels like the league is as invisible as it's been in a long time, because it's kind of on DAZN's own sort of streaming platform. So you have to go to DAZN, you've got to sign in, you've got to find. Then they're only on demand for a week.
I was trying to get on. I went through somewhere. I couldn't find it.
There you go. I mean, it's like I think they need to look at it, and when the previous regime, so obviously there was this, I don't know how much you've been following the league, but there was this American private equity firm 777 that had bought a stake in the league, and they had essentially tried to really invest, they were investing tens of millions and trying to sort of blow it up. But part of their model was you've got to grow the audience before you can get any type of deal. So they were just, all the games were free on YouTube, because they wanted to get the numbers up. So then you could say go to a TV company and say, look, this is how many numbers we're getting. And maybe it's because of that it just felt like it was way more visible, because you sign into YouTube on a Friday night and you just see games will be chucked in front of you. Oh, there's this game on. Where now this season that hasn't happened. But obviously, the league essentially went bankrupt in the summer and sort of is a new league, and the clubs had to put it together in 10 weeks, so they've got to give us some slack.
That I was talking about, Sam. Help me out here, man. What is it? Help me out to tell me that it's not the same thing I was just talking about. How can it be now, 2025?
Yeah, I ask the same question on a regular basis. It's incredibly frustrating, and I don't think there's a simple answer. And the same way you said, it's not just one thing. I always say that when people say to me, what is it why is British basketball not reaching its potential? What is the problem? I always say it's not a single thing. It is this sort of perfect storm of factors, whether it's facilities, whether it's sponsorship, whether it's the cultural issues, whether it's the coaching, whether it's the, like all of these things all come together.
Management.
Whether it's the management, the leadership, exactly. It's like all of these things come together, and sort of you end up in this situation where you have this essentially a sport of potential, which has potential, but reality is not doing a lot.
So I hear you. Well, why do they get that done with all the other British sports? That's the part I don't get. Why? It's not any different. It's just the product is basketball, but the running of it is still the same thing. And so this, I don't know, man.
I think there's frustrated. Obviously, like in England, there is the sort of the traditional sports, your football, rugby, cricket, that have always dominated everything, right? And the sports that are generally perceived to be American don't do as well, because it's seen as an American sport. Like obviously, like whether it's basketball, whether it's American football, or whether it's baseball, or whether it's ice hockey. Like, to be fair, actually, ice hockey does relatively well, but it's still very invisible by mainstream press. And so it's hard for anyone to break in. And like I see it when there have been events that are of note, that attract sort of mainstream attention. Like last year, the women, London Lions women, won the Euro Cup. Like, that's incredible. But even that, I think it was that the BBC sent down a journalist to the game, and he was sat next to me, and he just doesn't know the rules of basketball, And so here's someone he's there to write about the game, and
Yeah.
he's asking me questions about this. I think someone got a technical foul. I can't remember what it was. There was something where he was trying to understand what had happened,
Right.
and it's like these are the people that are responsible for the news that's being distributed to people, and they don't understand basketball. So it's like, how does basketball have any hope? So yeah, it's tough. There is definitely no simple answer, and it's a
He's
long
going to
term
break
project.
through one day, Sam. I swear. The odds are that one day it's going to break through because it's a great product. I know I'm biased, but it's a great product. It's it's electrifying. It got all the elements for fans. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, 100%. One of the things I wanted to ask you was the top players of your era. Like, who were the names? Like, you mentioned a few, and those are obviously when I speak to people about those teams, I hear about Alton Bird, I hear about Larry Dassey, I hear about you, I hear about Mark Sayers. Like, it's kind of who are the sort of the big names from that era that stand out, and sort of what were they like?
I'm talking about a beast of a player for Manchester was Vince Brookings out of University of Iowa. Great player. Solon had so many players. Mark Sayers went for Crystal Palace to Solon, but the other player they had was drafted second round for the Chicago Bulls, got cut, was Marvin Johnson. He was another beast. And then you have the great jump shooter. Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh, God. Went to Germany. Oh, how can I forget? Oh, John Johnson. Thank you. Went to Michigan. Jump shooting bad, man. He was doing national as far as German, and he left England and ended up playing in Germany. A black guy, half German, like me. People don't know that I'm Kinzer. My great grandfather was Kunter Kinzer. No, I'm just kidding. But I just happen to have a German last name. They had these. So Leicester had this pipe from Syracuse, and they had this guy Marty Head, another guy, Gene Waldron. All these guys coming from Syracuse. Birmingham had Greg White, this guy. I used to check always the top scores, and I would shut them down every time. And I'm not just bragging. You can ask anybody. And my other rule was, Sam, nobody dunks on Bobby Kinzer. Only one guy, and that was Greg White. He was so strong, man. He was a beast. Bob Martin, Jeff. What's Jeff's last name? Could shoot. Oh God, he's still around.
Jeff Jones.
Thank you. Oh, you're not as young as I thought you were.
Jeff Jones is still around. That's why I know.
That's what I said. I knew he was still around. Jeff Jones, Jerry Jenkins, Mississippi State. Jerry Jenkins, Mississippi Valley, Mississippi State. Jerry Jenkins, Bobby Cooper out of Providence that played with the great Marvin Barnes up in Providence. He went to college when he was like 25. He went to service first and came out, and they used to call him Dr. Dunkenstein. Bobby Cooper would dunk on everybody. He played for out of Kingston. They were called Kelly Girls. I think Kelly Girls was either a temp agency or tires. I forgot what it was they sponsored. Bobby Cooper. I mean, it was just some great guys, man. Now, this was kind of messed up. Harvey Knuckles, who was drafted by the Lakers, ended up playing in Himmel. That's the year I left because he got his boy over and they released me, and that's how I ended up in Scotland. The best thing that ever happened to me. But Jim Zoot, what's his name? Schroeder, who played with Fiat and he ended up trying to make the NBA and the Summer League. I remember him. So just some great players. Larry Gooding, and then the great Larry Dassey from Kansas State played with the best two guards in America, Chuck E. Smith and Mike Evans. They were all American, and Larry Dassey. I've never seen this guy taught me. Look, he added about 4 to 5 rebounds to my rebound. He taught me this way to hook him up and drop that elbow. And when you drop the elbow, the guy be falling back, and you go like this. It doesn't look like you fouled him. Larry could shoot, strong, could do it all, and he was 6'6". But he went to Kansas State. So some awesome players, Sam.
Why do you think the level of the Americans was so much higher back then that were playing in England?
You know,
Was it before the rest of the European leagues became prominent, so there wasn't as many options for them to play? Obviously, the leagues might not have been as developed. Like I don't know. Like, or was it just the fact that playing in Europe was still, in its early days, and there wasn't the cultural
I
barrier with the
think it
language?
still was in its early days. Because, like I told you, I wasn't. My goal wasn't to play. I had no inclination about playing in Europe, none, until I fractured my foot and missed the draft, and they said come to this camp. So that was the thing. It wasn't. But then it just got more popular to play in Europe. Because think about it, some NBA players now, like Bob McAdoo, he played great years in the '70s for Buffalo. Led the league in scoring. Then in his days when he was going down, he played for the Lakers, got a championship, and then went and played in Italy and won 2 European Cups after retirement days. Allen Iverson, that played with Philly. People don't know. He went and played in China. Stephon Murray. They got a statue up for him in China.
Yeah.
So it became more popular.
Yeah, of course. So I would assume that the Americans were the stars of every team. Were there English standout players? Were there any players that were English that really, you remember?
That's the other difference, Sam. There was some great Steve Ascender, who played for Fiat. Dave Shelley, who played with me in Ovaltine. Cole, oh my God, played with Sullivan. How can I forget this boy? He just passed too. What's Carl's last? Tatum. Sorry, I'm getting old. Forgive me. Carl Tatum, great point guard. But these guys actually became nationalized. But they were British, but they were like Pete Jermich, Dan Lloyd, Dave Lloyd, all those Lloyd boys. Doncaster had a many guys that were just, Cliff Bell, about 7 feet. One of the big 7 feet guys. I think he played with Doncaster back then. Some great English players. And I can't forget Joel Moore. I mean, come on, Joel. And then, how about Steve Bucknell? Went to the Lakers and played at the University of North Carolina. So that was the difference. There was some really, really good. Oh, well, no, he's naturalized. I can say Paul Simpson. I don't know if you know that name.
Paul Simpson. Yeah, I know Paul. I've had Paul on the podcast.
Yeah. Oh, great. Because Paul is with FIBA now.
Yes. Well, I think he might have left FIBA now, but he was at FIBA for a long time. He's not naturalized though. He's born and raised in England.
He wasn't doing that. No, he wasn't American. That's right, Paul. Thank you.
Paul, as far as I'm aware.
My memories. You're right. So that goes to my point. Yeah. Paul was another great Paul, and then Paul Philp that plays for Solent down there. I mean, it's just, oh man, and it's amazing that all these names are coming back to me, and just great guys, man. The league, the camaraderie, the competition, and that's what made the difference, Sam. I'm glad you brought that up. They really had some good English players, but back to my point, right? They came through the youth program, right? Most of them guys were coming. They came from the grassroots that built them up, and that's what I don't think they have. They're not as strong as they used to be. That's why they had way better, to me, English players. And I mean, not that the players are not good now, English players, but I think they were way more because they were developing them.
Mm. When you made the move to Scotland, like how did that differ from your English experience?
Oh boy. No one prepared me for the Scots. I couldn't understand a damn word they were saying, and they would sing to you. You going to go to the store, Bobby Kinzer? Would you like? And then when the guy asked me, did I want a fag at the bar, I'm like, what? Oh, he said, no, I'm in a cigarette. Oh, okay. Sam, it was a cultural shock. Everybody came up to here to me, and they will walk up to you, not like English. English, the difference between English and Scotland, English, you had to earn their friendship. Scotland, they up in your face. Hey, big man, how's the weather up there? Dude, goddamn, how many times I've heard that saying? But loved them. The water tastes like fresh air. And this is the thing, Sam. As far as basketball, on the grassroots, they were way more ahead, developed basketball-wise than British players. Can you believe that?
Really?
Yes, they played ball for some time. And look, how about this? Did you know who's the father of basketball?
The father.
James Naismith. You know he's Scottish.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they've been doing it for years. That's what shocked me. Sam, I'm telling you, they had some good players. Jim Morris and Steve Hoffman ended up playing in England for Sunderland, but he's Scottish. I mean, they just had some great Seymour Hadwin. Oh man, just some good players. So the culture shock was different because I went from this red brick to this stone and gloomy days. Look, I thought I was at a cemetery when I first got there. It was raining and all these stone buildings and castle on every block. And, it was such a culture shock. I mean, and I go to, they take me, I wasn't playing golf. I'm a golfer now. You heard of Tiger Woods? Well, I'm Tiger in the woods. But anyway, so they invited me and my partner, Warren Holcomb from Silver Spring, Maryland, to go to St. Andrews. Now, I didn't know nothing about golf, so I'm thinking, oh man, I'm a pro athlete. I can play some golf. So they took us out there on the famous 18th hole with the little bridge. And it's, it was still enough time to play. And this guy started talking all this Scottish stuff. Listen to the winds of the words of Robbie Burns and the Breckenridge of the Brown. What the hell is this dude going about, man? We gonna play and then we go in and eat. So I said, well, he got to talking. He took too long. So I'm like, maybe we're going to play. Then they took us to Glen Eagles the next month. This is our sponsors. I'm like, oh, we're going to play now. We go and eat. I'm like, hey. They said, and they would always ask, hey, have you been in the driving range? I said, no, I ain't been in no driving range. I'm a pro athlete. I can play golf. Until I started playing golf, I learned they wasn't going to have me hacking up their damn course. That's the most difficult sport I ever played in my life, and I love it.
Amazing. Was there ever any crossover between the Scottish and the English leagues and any cup competitions or anything like that, or were they very separate?
No, they did. So our owner, John Edmonds, great mind. He was into these building roller skating rinks, and that's how Stuart Wilson talked him into putting the basketball court in the center of roller skating. That's why, but it was a roller skating rink, and so every 2 feet was sponges. So everybody that came in that gym was dunking because our court was wood and it was spun. Everybody was dunking. Mugs like under 6 feet was dunking. It was crazy, but they didn't realize what was going on. And then we had all the crystal balls, lights. They put fog on the floor the first game. Man, we're up by 20 on that team before we even started. They were so shocked they went to the bench. We had a sky bar. We had an instant replay screen. And so it was management, this guy, so he was like, he was really promoting it, man. And it was so fun how they were doing it. So, so back to your question. So he had a British competition with, it was called the British Tournament. It was, Crystal Palace, Sunderland, Solent, us, a team from Ireland and a team from Wales. And, we played, it was 8 teams. It was 2 more teams. Oh, who else was in it? But it was all the countries who were represented, and we came in third. MIM, Murray International Medals, which was Alton Bird, and they won it. They won it, but we came in third, being a Scottish team, to come in third against all those British teams. And Wales wasn't even in it, but they sang good. Oh, there was some beautiful songs they had, but they they didn't chance it. They had 2 chances, Slim and None. But so they did cross over. And then at the beginning of the season, we did have exhibition games. We played against Bracknell. So yes, they did cross over.
Right. When you look back, like what are some of your favourite memories from your time in England or Scotland, your time in the UK?
Well, I gotta admit, my favorite times were in Scotland. They were some of the greatest times. So that's when I won championships, right? Now, my first year we went to Wembley with just me and Larry Dassey, and we didn't stand a chance because we were outnumbered, and Larry got hurt. But playing in Wembley, the great Wembley, that was great. Then I didn't know it, and I won the Fair Play Award, which is considered Sportsman of the Year. I won that. That was very exciting. And playing then, and then winning the championship, because they were always right. Oh, Bobby Kinzer, because actually I was a point guard at 6'5", but I played swingman when I first come because that's what they put the two Americans in the forward and center spots. But when Kevin came, he moved me back to point guard. So I didn't have to score as much, but I ran the team. But they were always right in the newspaper. He's the Pied Piper of basketball. He was great. It was a great entertaining game. But he never won the big one. They were always in that. When I listened to Charles Barkley and I listened to Patrick Ewing and these guys that never won one, and people don't understand, that's a monkey on your back if you play professional basketball and you never won. Because you could be MVP of the league, leading scorer, leading rebound, but if you didn't win one, for some reason, you never reached that pinnacle. And when we won it in Scotland, and we had, I'm talking about 5,000 people, colored gems, lights, going off, and laser lights. And that was the most exciting time of my year. And if you look now, look at all the NBA teams with the power techniques, with the bombs going off. We had all of that stuff in 1982. Only team back in the 80s that had an instant replay screen was my home team, the Washington Bullets. Only team. We had an instant replay now. Couldn't see much on it because it was one of them always like, something about the Scots. The Scots are some amazing people, Sam. They invented the tire, Dunlop.
I didn't know.
Dunlop. They invented the surface on top of the streets, tarmac. They invented penicillin. They invented TV. Logie Baird invented TV. And check this one. Check this one, Sam. They say, we invented the Bible. And people say, oh, that's blasphemy. No. People don't know. King James is Scottish. He's not English. He was the son of Mary, Queen of Scots. But so the Scots are spectacular, man. So those are some of my interesting times, man. And then one other time, man. So you know how you call out the introductions. And usually the stars come out last and everybody lines up. So I'm tying my shoe. They go, we playing Sunderland. And I'm last. And the great Bobby Special K. So I'm tying my shoe on the bench, and something just told me, just run out from this position backwards. So running out backwards. And how come? And I know to this day who did it. Tim, who played on our team, stuck his foot out, tripped me out, and I fell, and the place went off, man. And we lost the game. The next day in the paper, is like, team literally fell to Sunderland. I'm like, stop that foolishness. A great time. And that's just sum up. Sam, I could go on. There was some great times in England and Scotland, to be honest.
I guess on the flip side of that, did you have low points? Like, was it hard living away from home? Like, what were the difficult moments?
Oh, this was the difficult, man, especially when I went to Scotland, because it got dark in the winter around about like 3 o'clock, right? So we didn't practice till 8 after, the skating ring and stuff, right? So I would, most of the guys in other teams too would stay in the bed until like maybe 1 o'clock and get to go out, and it was dark. So I was living in dark for a week, and I felt so drained. I didn't know how important it was to get that sun. So I would go to the army bases, like Dunoon in Scotland, but Lincoln Heath and Chicksands in England, right? And I would get all American stuff, and I would literally buy a box of Raisin Bran just so I could see the sun in the morning when I ate breakfast.
Amazing.
It was so, I didn't know how much that affects you not getting sun, man. So I started getting up early just to go out and get sun. It was so different, man.
Yeah. Obviously, you've just released a book. Can you tell us about the book? What made you do it, and kind of where people can find it?
Yes, I've been wanting to write this book. It took me about 10 years, but really 15 years. My daughter kept saying, have you finished the book yet, Dad? And I always tell my kids, complete stuff, don't start stuff. So I said, don't be no hypocrite. But I wrote it in a year, but over a 10-year period, I was off and on. But I wrote it within a year. It's called The Other Side of the Hoop, the European Basketball Experience. It's just about my 5 years playing professional basketball in Great Britain. And I wanted to write it because there were so many things in this league that happened, Sam, that I wanted people to know about because people had, people think they know you. And I just wanted to tell the true story. And I wanted to be a story for guys that might think about coming over. Because like I said, no one told me about the European experience. So I wanted to write it for people like that. But my main purpose of the book is about lessons learned. And it wasn't really, it's more a book about life than it is about basketball. I'm just using basketball as the anecdotes and, to tell the funny stories. But at the end of each story is this lessons learned. And so what my theme of that book is, the blessings are in the lessons. And I try to empower and hope that people will read it as a personal development book more than just a basketball book. That's why my book is in Barnes and Nobles and am on Amazon. And you can go on my site, bobbykinzer.com, Kinzer, bobbykinzer.com, and find my book and find out a little bit about the story. But there's so much like what we're talking about now, and why. First of all, let me just stop and thank you so much, Sam, for giving me this opportunity to express some of the things, because I saw so much, man, and it was so much a big part of my life. That's why I'm so behind, hoping that they finally would get, the league off the ground and make it, really make it international, especially taking it into Europe, because I got so much from it. I got so much from it. I learned so much about contracts. So my first year I had an agent, like I told you, but he was taking 10% from me and 10% from the team. So I said, wait a minute. If I cut the middleman out, I can take that 10% and I get 20%. And you know what I learned, Sam? To have yourself as an agent is to have a fool for a client. It really pays to have representation, man. I was 22 at the time when I let him go, and Ovaltine ate me alive, man. I tried to, ask for more money. We went to the play. Me and Larry averaged 26 points each. We were up in the top. We go to the women, and I'm thinking, yeah. And then I did the commercial. I'm like, I'm the man. I did 2 commercials. I did a commercial in Swiss, no, well, Holland. It was a heating ointment. It was filmed in Halifax warehouse where the alien was all filmed in a warehouse. This is where this commercial was made. They gave me something like 600 pounds. It was from 6 in the morning till 11 at night, a 60-second commercial. I never even seen it. That's before I did the Food Passer. So I did 2 commercials. There, to this day, there's no players who've done a commercial, a TV commercial in basketball in Britain that I know of. Matter of fact, no black person, the only other black person that really did, I'm talking about an individual. You could have been in a commercial, but as me as the individual, the only other person that did one was this guy, comedian named Lenny Bruce. And no other black person has done a commercial. But so I'm thinking, oh, I got leverage. They released me and I didn't come back that second year. But the best thing that happened, I hadn't finished my degree. I went back and finished my degree in sociology and anthropology. And then they came back because they hired this guy named Joe Pace out of Baltimore. He was crazy. He chased the referee in Jersey out the gym and down the street for 2 blocks before he gave up. In Wembley, they would foul him out in the first half because he was just a beast. He had no business playing in that league. He played in the NBA. He broke every glass in Wembley in the locker rooms at halftime, and he went home. He would go home. They fouled him out at halftime. He'd go home. So Ovaltine came back the next year in 82, 80, 81. I went to college and finished 82, 80, 81, 82. They brought me back. And I played, and then I had a contract dispute with them. They wanted to give me this basic contract and give all these other guys more money. Harvey, Knuckles, Juice Sewell, Mike Spade. Remember that name? Mike Spade, who just passed. May he rest in peace, by the way. And they wanted to give me a standard contract. And I'm like, man, don't I deserve more? They said, bye, get out of here. And that's how I ended up in Scotland. Best thing I ever did. Thanks to Roger Yap. So anyway, that's...
Amazing.
More than you asked for.
Well, look, I've got a copy of the book. I look forward to reading it. I encourage everyone else to check it out to get more stories like this. There's obviously so many untold stories around the game here that I think it's so good that you've done it. Like, it's good to have that stuff documented so that, in 20 years' time, people can look back as well. And it doesn't just get lost in the ether, especially as we get to this generation now where we're losing a lot of people as well. So, with them, a lot of those memories are going. So, well, thank you very much for taking the time. It's much appreciated. And hopefully, we can catch up sometime soon, and all the best with the book.
And one last thing, I have a podcast on FaceTime and on YouTube called The Fit Show, financial information for today and tomorrow, every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And also, because now I'm a certified financial education instructor, my whole life after ball was teaching finances and working at supervising banks and things like that. So now I teach young people, mostly in high school and college students, about personal money management. And you can go out on my nonprofit site called financialenrichment.org.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity, Sam. I really, really appreciate it. You made an old guy feel worth